digital revolution has happened since I was at Aberystwyth. And all of those things that we take for granted, YouTube videos and comparison websites and online directories, checker trade, these sort of things have happened, and we take them for granted now. Yet, the digital revolution has happened, and the energy crops has not gone with that. So we're still in this process. If you want to know about it, you go and find out through booklets and talking to people perhaps, and you might be sold stuff. You're not quite sure if you're getting all of the right answers for you. So that's where we're coming from when this, with this Envirocrops web app. We want to make inroads into catching up and giving people the sort of things that they expect in this day and age, so they can get instant answers on their phone or on their iPad. So a little bit about me. I've been in this game for 30 years. So prior to being here, I did 6 months along Ashton Research Station, and that changed my life in as much that on the first day I was there as a casual student, I was told about willows for biomass. Never really even heard the term biomass before. I didn't know what willows were for, but I thought, what a cool idea. And at that time we were talking about the Kyoto Protocol and trying to turn around this climate change that some people didn't believe in back then. A lot more didn't believe back then. But it was one of those things that I thought, what a great idea, and I still believe in it, and this is why I've stuck with it for 30 years. Now, that first image there, you can see some little fluffy things there. So I wasn't particularly a promising prospect, I don't think, as a plant breeder doing a master's. So some of the guys I was working with here, Brian Middleton, John Valentine, Roger Clothier, Albert Jones and Dill Jones, took me under their wing and told me the ropes about plant breeding. And I mentioned the immortal line. It's immortal because they've never let me forget it. But when I saw this oat here, and I said, what are those fluffy things? And Brian Middleton said to me, young Kevin, those are what you would call roots. My knowledge of plant anatomy has improved, thankfully, since then. And I've spent the last 30 years trying to get people interested in these other fluffy things, willows, and we're just about on the cusp of it happening, which is really great. And it's lovely for me because, of course, it's been swinging against the tide of treacle for a lot of that time. So, as I've mentioned, if you are someone who's interested in doing this at the moment, you've got a lot of confusion out there because there is information. Now with Biomass Connect, it's all going to be brought into one place, which is fantastic. But if you don't know about Biomass Connect, because it's a new website and everything, you might be surfing around the web and you'll get all sorts of information. It scatters, some of it's out of date. You've got, if you wanted to go down the road of getting a consultant to help, I'm one of the few people that has the knowledge to look at all of the different crops and offer that comparison of willow, miscanthus, eucalyptus, poplar, etc. But you'd have to pay me to do that, and you'd end up with this tome that you'd have to try and wade through. Then the other alternative is to get from people who are actually trying to sell you the product, and with that you might be getting a used car essentially that you don't know. It might be one with a rusty bonnet, say. So it's not always independent, and it can often be one-tracked, and they're saying, oh, miscanthus is the one for you, or willow is the one for you, definitely eucalyptus. And you're thinking, do I believe them? I'm not sure. I'll give it a go, maybe. And it could be something where you're just a bit of a guinea pig. So it often comes with a sales pitch. So if we're going to coin the phrase of this kind of comparison websites and everything, essentially it's a confused.com sort of situation. And it is a very complicated thing to do a feasibility study. This is the 15 steps, the 16 steps that I go through when I do one for a client. And in this situation, it's the question is starting with what type of fuel do I want? And this could be from a power station's point of view. So you start with that, and then you go through these various steps. And obviously it's really complicated, and ends up with a 50-page report. But the problem with a feasibility study or a grower's guide is that as soon as it's written and it's published and it's presented to the client, it is a snapshot in time. It is over. And you can't crystal ball gaze. You can't predict COVID-19 or the Ukraine war or something like that. A report done in, say, 2018 is only relevant for that day or month in 2018. It doesn't move. If you want to then recrunch the numbers, you've got to go through all of it again and come up with a different one. So it's not we're not gonna get to that 2050 situation of meeting our net zero targets very, very quickly if we have to rely on consultants providing these sorts of publications. And similarly, with the best practice guidelines, this was the last iteration. We've created a new one for Envirocrops, but this was the last one in 2014, 2015. Many of the herbicides are now banned in that. Many of the pesticides are banned. Some of the practices are different. We used to cut back at the end of the first year. None of the contractors do that anymore because they want to harvest at the end of 2 years and get a harvest rather than lose a year. It's not captured in that best practice guideline, so if you read that, you're reading the old information. So when I came up with the idea, myself and Chris Johnson from AFBI in Northern Ireland, we thought, how do we catch up and meet this digital revolution requirement that people want and answer all the big questions? And these are the sort of things that we wanted to try and get down into something that is very, very simple. Now, of course, anything that's simple for you guys to use is really complicated behind the scenes. So heck of a lot of information going into that in order to give you instant answers. But these are the sort of things that we feel that most people who want a feasibility study done are going to be asking. So those are the questions we're trying to answer. And with this revolution, we want to bring together essentially comparethemarket.com, Wikipedia, Checkertrade and Gumtree. So the Gumtree is this idea of a local online trading facility where you can trade biomass, carbon, land, etc. Farmers suddenly are in a position to be able to gain from this crop and make money from it rather than being a price taker. And with this, with something that is an app, we can create something that is agile, that follows the markets and is bang up to date. But the great thing is that if we can get the industry behind us and we can get the academics behind us, we've already got the government funding, then why wouldn't you go there to use that system and use that system to trade your carbon, etc. So that's what we want to do. And we call it Envirocrops because we want to get away from this idea of perennial energy crops, energy burning to produce. And we want to talk about biomass crops, but biomass again has got a bit of a connotation. Envirocrops is a better all-encompassing term. Any crop that does environmental good could be in this app, and the same templates that we've created for it in terms of the decision-making process could be covered. Willow miscanthus will be the first two in the alpha release of the app, and eucalyptus and poplar thereafter, and then we're getting into these more novel ones. But things like fodder crops and forages and any of these other crops can be part of this revolution as well. So in terms of, as I mentioned, it's going to be quite complicated in the back end in order to make it easy to use. What we want to do is use a lot of these systems that I've created over the years in order to just make that simple. One of the things here, digital mapping and yield model predictors, what is exciting is if we get people to use this tool, then put in their data, then the models that we use in order to predict yields for other people are made more robust all the time by people adding more and more data. The more data points, the better the model comes. So the person who has it now is growing with the idea of the person who grows next will benefit. And it snowballs like that. And then you get hundreds, if not thousands of data points, and the model becomes very robust indeed. This idea of the integrated best practice guidelines as well. Rather than having a book that goes out of date, you will be able to download it as a PDF if you want. But rather than just have that, you'll be able to go through the whole system and click on things as and when they're important to you. One of the other things is if you put in that you're starting to plant a particular crop at some point, you will get alerts when you should be thinking about doing something. So bite-sized, clickable chunks rather than a big book to constantly carry around and think, have I read it or have I forgotten something? But also directory of practitioners, be they contractors, consultants, end users, markets, all of that sort of stuff, all in a digital platform. And the really great thing that none of the other comparison sites have to do is compare apples with pears. I mean, essentially, when you've got Miscanthus, that's a 1-year rotation. Willow is a 3-year rotation. Eucalyptus, an 8-year rotation. Poplar can be anything from 3 to 8 years. How do you compare all that? Well, this is the great thing. You don't have to worry because it's all going to be done in the background. And then you'll end up with this, this lovely comparison of the economics, because it's all about the money at the end of the day. And if you're a self-supplier and you want to know how much it's going to cost to produce fuel for your own boiler, pence per kilowatt hour. If you are a power station and you want to know, okay, if I commission growers to grow this, I want to know if they can produce it for something that's going to be beneficial to me, pound per tonne, pounds per cubic metres, or pounds per gigajoule. Those are the figures that those guys understand. And then from a farmer's point of view, you're thinking, I want to plant this for the next 20 years. Is it going to make me any money when I sell it? So, pounds per hectare per year. All of these will be there for all of the crops. You'll see a site suitability and be able to make an instant decision. Does it work? Does it not work? That's really, really great. So, we believe that the target audience for this immediately is 500,000 people. Now, the majority of those are farmers and land managers, etc. But there's plenty of others that will benefit from it. And of course, there's only a few of these carbon traders at the moment, but if we're to get to net zero, there's going to be plenty of them. And the key thing is that the people that are holding these jobs, policymakers and carbon traders, in the 2030s and the 2040s, are going to be the youngsters now. The decision makers of the future will be the people who are at school and agricultural college now. So we've got to influence them as well. So this, this group here, very, very important. On the advisory board, we've got lots of different people that cover many august institutions, but they're all within the target audience. So consultants and academics and NGOs and a farmer here, very switched on environmental farmer. And then BEIS is DESNES now. ADAS, this person here has a carbon sequestration experience. What we're missing at the moment, and if you know any agricultural students who would be interested, is what we want is essentially a PewDiePie, someone who is an influencer, someone who's a gamer, but also an agricultural student who will become an influencer to that next generation. It's a paid gig. There's some money in it. If you know anyone who might be interested, then please let them know. All it is a CV plus the 300 words on why you want to do it. And then it could be something that starts you off on the same sort of journey that I started off 30 years ago. Hopefully thinking, what a cool idea, and by 2050 you'll be looking back and saying, I'm glad I did that. So, what we want is this to be something that goes way, way beyond the 3 years of funding. We've got up until March 25, then we become commercial. And when I say commercial, I mean making money to do good things with it, to keep it not profit, because as soon as someone like me made money out of it, people would say, well, he's making money out of it, or the shareholders are making money. It's all going to be ploughing back in to research, and hopefully keeping long-term trials running, like the Biomass Connect ones, for instance. And of course we can do that because for every gram or kilogram of carbon that's traded, or every ton of biomass that's traded, we would be taking some of that money and then funneling it back into the industry. What a great thing, because of course as soon as you do that, everyone believes in it, because no one's making money out of it. So I implore everyone who hasn't already to sign up to get the newsletter. If you go to envirocrops.com, you will be able to get that. But if these slides are shared, then you can just click that link. What we want to do, because it's a numbers game and we need lots of people to sign up and tell other people to sign up, we are going to have incentives. So probably on Twitter and LinkedIn, every week, if you sign up, there might be a chance to win some Willow briquettes or some Miscanthus firelighters. Similarly, with one of the other things that we're doing, the game, which I'll tell you about in a minute, each month, if you sign up and then you play the game and you do the guide, the feedback form, there's a chance to win an Amazon £50 voucher. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It's a good opportunity. The app, the first release, the alpha release, is in mid-March this month, so it'd be great if people have a play. What we want, of course, because we know that it's not going to be the finished article, we need people to play it, or not play it, to use it, and say, we don't like this, we don't like that, and we then have plenty of opportunity to change it going forward. As I say, we've got 2 more years to do that. But what is ready now is this STEM game, Cropper. And if you are a complete novice at Willow Miscanthus, you have no idea about how to go about doing planting these crops, then have a go at this. In 3 goes, 3 plays, you should be an expert. Essentially, it's like a game of The Apprentice. So imagine Lord Allen is saying, okay, here's 25 grand, you need to invest this, you need to make me money. One of you will get fired if you don't. You've got 10 years to produce enough fuel to heat a school, and you have to choose either Willow or Miscanthus. And with that, we've got Wheels of Fate, we've got rabbits that jump across as they eat your prize willow. We've got the harvester that comes in, we've got nice animations, we've got nice sound effects, we've got some voracious beetles that come in and eat your crop if you're unlucky. We've got climate change, Wheels of Fate, because even if you do everything completely by the book, something will happen that will cause your crop to possibly go south. But also, there's a chance of it going better, because you might end up suddenly finding yourself that a government scheme comes on board and starts paying you more money. Flooding and drought can happen. And then we've got the chance to ask the neighbour or ask a consultant. There's these little buttons here where you can do that. If you ask the consultant for advice, you pay for it. If you ask the neighbour advice, you get a bit of a flaky sort of answer. So it's one of those things. And then, of course, what we've done is even put in this hike in global energy prices. The Ukraine war's happened, so we're reflecting that in this game. So the price that you get goes up. But first time out, most often people will fail. And this is why, by doing it the second time, you'll learn from the first time's mistakes. By the third time, you'll be an absolute expert. And instead of having to spend, I don't know, 5 hours reading a 70-page best practice guideline about one single crop, you'll have played a game, 30 minutes of your time, and you'll know pretty much everything there is to know about planting this crop. So what a great idea that is. So please have a go at it, and as I say, once you have played the game, envirocrops.com/game, there is a feedback form. We've had lots of people play the game so far, 700 odd goes, but only 30 feedback forms. Hence, in order to make it better, we need really consistent information from people on what they would like to improve. We need, I think, at least 100 responses in order to improve that. So this is why we're offering a few incentives. So then and now, 30 years on, the hair's got a bit greyer, the calipers have got a bit bigger, but funnily enough, I was coming up here and I was thinking, will I bump into some of my old colleagues? And funnily enough, this being out at Aberystwyth, of course it happened. We went to the pub, and on the next table was the chap, Brian Middleton, who said 30 years ago, or said, when I said, what are those fluffy things? He said, those, my dear Kevin, are roots. So it was a lovely thing to return to see my old golfing buddy as well. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I'll take some questions.
No.